Hey everybody, this is Brian with Bear Cards 34. I wasn't planning on making another video for today because I've already done a couple videos this week. However, I decided I'd go ahead and do the second installment of Blast from the Past. This will be TTM Blast from the Past number 2. And the reason for it is because of this guy right here. This is Tunch Ilkin. This is his 91 Fleer card. And back in 91, I did write to a bunch of Steelers players, and Tunch Ilkin wrote me back, and he signed my 91 Fleer card. Now what's interesting is on the back here, it says Tunch, pronounced Tunch. However, everything I've heard from him and even some interviews with him, it's always been pronounced Tunch. So I don't know if Fleer got it wrong or if Tunch just finally decided to stop correcting people and just went with it. But anyway, unfortunately, yesterday, Saturday, Tunch passed away. He passed away at the age of 63 from ALS. Now, one claim to fame for Tunch, along with being a football player, is he is the first Turkish-born player to ever play in the NFL. He was unfortunately diagnosed with ALS, which is also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. He announced that diagnosis in October of last year, and then in June of this year, he retired from broadcasting. So after his career, he had become a pretty prominent commentator for sports in the Pittsburgh area. He was very well loved there. He was born September 23rd, 1957 in Istanbul, Turkey. His parents immigrated to the U.S. at age 2, where they moved to Chicago. Go Bears. He attended Indiana State University, and he was a 6th-round pick in the 1980 draft, the year after they won the Super Bowl. So he was able to be teammates with some of those legends like Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Mean Joe Green, and all of those guys. So pretty neat that he was a part of those teams and then was able to kind of, end up being a Pro Bowler himself. He did go to 2 Pro Bowls in 88 and 89. And, he talked a little bit about his experience with the draft. He talked about how back in 1980, players were not, there wasn't a big draft, there wasn't a big hoopla. He basically just found out about it later. He didn't even know if he was going to get picked or what round he'd go in. And then he learned that he was a 6th-round pick, made the team, and ended up playing there for quite some time. He played with the Steelers up until 1992, and then in 93 he did sign with the Packers, and I had heard somewhere that he only played in 1 game and then he retired, which I don't blame him. It's Green Bay Packers. I'm just kidding, by the way. So anyway, he did retire, though, after just a very short stay in Green Bay. And he was the vice president of the Players Association from 89 to 1994. And like I said, he became a mainstay in Pittsburgh sports radio broadcasts after his playing career. His co-host as a sportscaster, Bill Hillgrove, mentioned that Tunch was Pittsburgh through and through. He really put his roots down there. He got married, had a few kids. His wife, unfortunately, passed away about a decade ago, but he did remarry. He was very active in his church. He was active in homeless shelters and service work in the Pittsburgh area. And on December 21st of last year, Pittsburgh declared that was Tunch Ilkin Day. So anyway, very sad to hear of his passing. He was a very, very good player, and I always appreciated that he took the time to write me back when I was a kid, way out in Utah. He definitely made an effort, and I appreciate that. And although this wasn't a TTM, I mentioned a month ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, about meeting Tony Dorsett and getting my book that he wrote signed. And I showed a couple pictures that I had found, and I just found a third one, and this one was actually me shaking hands with him. I didn't remember even having this photo, so I'm really happy that I was able to find this one as well. And you can see right here I'm holding some cards because this was at a sports card show, so I'm holding some cards. I've got my book right here. He's shaking my hand just before or after signing the book. So that was a nice memory for me, and I'm glad I was able to pick that picture up. All right, so the next player I will talk about is one that none of you have probably ever heard of. For those who follow my channel, I am a Utah State University alum and grew up a fan of both University of Utah and Utah State. So I always made sure to write to the guys who played here in the state of Utah. And one of those players was an offensive lineman for Utah State who signed with the Seattle Seahawks. His name was Jerry Brown. He was number 61. Unfortunately, he was not able to play for a very long. I'm not even sure if he made the team with the final cut, or if he did, I think it was just for that one season that he was on the team. So with this one here, Jerry Brown, there's his signature right there. He actually wrote me a nice letter. So I'll go ahead and read that, because, you know, this just shows some of these players would really take the time to thoughtfully, I mean, his letter was longer than the letter I wrote him. So I really appreciated this. Dear Brian, I'm glad you took the time to write me. It is great to hear from a Utah State fan. I hope everything is good in Utah. I plan to go back in the off season, so make sure things are running okay. As far as the Seahawks go, everything is going just fine, and I'm looking forward to playing the Denver Broncos in Japan on August 4th. There sure will be a lot of former Aggies playing in that game. There's 2 for the Broncos, Mark Muris and Greg Cregan, then me for the Seahawks. Again, thanks for writing me, and good luck to you in school. Remember always to study hard, because the more effort you put in school, the more successful you will become in life. Also remember, you will always be a winner if you give 100%. If you do this all the time, there is nothing in the world you can't accomplish. Your friend, Jerry Brown. And then on the back, P.S. Please say hi to the Hunsakers. So, don't know who the Hunsakers are necessarily, but if I ever track them down, I'll be sure to tell him hi. But anyway, I just thought this was very nice, very thoughtful. And he mentioned that game in Japan. There is a Pro Set card that actually highlights that. Broncos Seahawks American Bowl in Tokyo. The Broncos won that game 10-7. But that must have been, I'm sure, a very neat experience. So all in all, for me, just, you know, having, you know, a Utah State Aggie write such a nice and thoughtful letter with some really good advice for a kid, you know, to hear that from people that he looks up to, you know, giving your all, putting everything forward, making an effort in school. Definitely appreciate that letter, and it means a lot to me. All right, so next up, as I mentioned, I wrote to some of the Pittsburgh Steelers. This here is Thomas Everett. He was a 4th-round pick for the Steelers back in 1987. He played 5 years with the Steelers before heading over to the Dallas Cowboys, and he finished his career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In college, he played at Baylor, and he was a 2-time All-American. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame, and he won the Jim Thorpe Award his senior year as best defensive back in college. He had actually started out as a running back at Baylor as a freshman and then moved to the defense his sophomore year. In the NFL, he was known for his punishing hits. He made the all-rookie team, and when he went to the Cowboys, that's where he saw his biggest success. He was a 2-time Super Bowl champ with the Cowboys, and part of that defense that was a dynasty. You know, he was there for some of those great years, and he was a Pro Bowler in 1993. Like I said, he finished his career with Tampa Bay, but definitely nice to get his autograph as well. Next up is Winston Moss. And I know for a fact when I wrote to him, I did not give him any cards, but he mailed me this card right here. So this is him in his Buccaneers uniform, but it mentions he was traded to the Raiders. And then he also sent me this card. It was one of those tall boys from Game Day. I really like these cards. They're big, they're sharp. The only thing for me was they were hard to store. But he went ahead and autographed those and sent those to me, which I really appreciated. Now, he was like Thomas Everett. He was also a rookie in 1987. He was a 2nd-round pick by the Buccaneers and played there for 4 seasons. He then went on to spend another 4 seasons with the Raiders and then finished out with 3 seasons with Seattle Seahawks. In his final season, he actually won the Steve Largent Award, which was for, you know, spirit, dedication, integrity, things that Steve Largent brought to the field and off the field as well. So that was a nice little award for him to get at the end of his career. He was a very talented linebacker, very good at tackling, and had a very successful career. And then he went on to do some coaching. He was actually the assistant head coach and linebackers coach of the Green Bay Packers for over a decade, from 2007 to 2018. And he is currently, or at least last year, he was the head coach and general manager for the LA Wildcats of the XFL. I don't really follow the XFL, but I think it's really cool when they have players and give them an opportunity to do some coaching. So very cool for Winston Moss. All right, next up, I wrote a letter to Herschel Walker and was very happy when he mailed me back. So I always really liked this auto that he sent me with the purple ink. So this says, "God bless Herschel Walker, number 34. Most people familiar with the NFL are aware of Herschel Walker and his accomplishments. He's best known probably for the 1982 Heisman Trophy, which he won while playing at Georgia. But I would say he's maybe next best known as being part of that big blockbuster trade. They even call it the Herschel Walker trade, where the Minnesota Vikings basically traded a large amount of draft picks, which the Cowboys in turn used to develop a really good team that turned into a dynasty in the 90s. So there's no question that Herschel Walker is an extremely talented running back, and he always was. Before the trade, he had a season where he ran for over 1,500 yards, and he had over 500 receiving yards. And when you also add in his return yardage, he ended up having one of the best seasons ever for a running back. I mean, it was a great season. And once the trade went through, he had 2 consecutive Pro Bowls. He was considered one of, if not the, best running back in the NFL. He was right up there. And his first game with Minnesota was great. He had 148 yards on only 18 carries. The crowd was loving him. They were chanting his name. Everybody was so excited to have him there. But unfortunately, that productivity never really materialized after that. And people have looked back on it. Basically, Minnesota traded, the farm to get him, but then they didn't really utilize him to his strengths. They were trying to get him to fit their scheme instead of creating a scheme that worked best for him. And as a result, he just never quite had the stats that he had in Dallas. So he did spend 3 years with Minnesota, and he was good, but nothing like what he had done in Dallas, and certainly not worth all those draft picks. And after 3 years there, he signed with the Eagles, where he did run for over 1,000 yards again. Then he briefly went to the Giants, and then he ended up back with the Cowboys again for his final season and retired after the 1997 year. If you were to include his USFL statistics and his NFL statistics, so he played for the Generals in the USFL, and if you were to include those statistics as well as his NFL statistics, then he ran for basically 14,000 yards, and he also had 6,000 yards receiving. His all-purpose yards combined between the two leagues was over 25,000 yards. So again, I mean, that's a very great career, and you add in the Heisman Trophy. He was a very talented running back for sure. He's been very involved with other activities, for example, mixed martial arts. He's a 5th-degree black belt in Taekwondo. He was even a member of the U.S. bobsled team, and Pinnacle even made a card to highlight that. You can see Herschel here as part of that team, and they were in the Olympics, where I don't remember what they placed. They were like 7th or 8th place. They didn't win any medals, but yeah, he was part of that 92 Winter Olympics, and it was a pretty cool accomplishment, along with the other things that he has done in his career. I know he's dabbled in politics since then as well, and has been an advocate for mental health and talked about some of his own issues. So anyway, very happy to have that Herschel Walker auto. Okay, next up, we've got Anthony Munoz. I'll highlight here just to kind of show the auto. So he addressed it by my name, Brian, best wishes, signed it with his number as well. And this is compliments of Pizza Tower, and the number is there. If you guys are hungry, give him a call. So anyway, there's the picture, team picture there. Very happy to have this one. Even at the time, everybody knew he was one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time. And if you have a list of top 5, if he's not at number 1, he's somewhere on that list for sure. He played 13 years with the Bengals. Now, he did actually sign on with Tampa Bay after his final year with Cincinnati, and they even made a few cards of him wearing some Tampa Bay gear. However, he retired, or I think he may have even been cut before the season began. He was basically at the end of his career at that point. Some injuries with his knees have taken his toll by then. But of course, that was after an amazing career. You know, he played college football at USC, but he also played baseball there as a pitcher, and they won the national championship in 1978, which is pretty amazing, you know, to think of this big offensive lineman as a national champion pitcher for USC. He also played in 3 Rose Bowl victories during his college career, and he was the 3rd pick overall in 1980. He was actually considered a big risk at number 3 because he had a pretty serious knee injury in college. But he went on to have 11 Pro Bowls, 9 first-team All-Pros, a member of the 80s All-Decade team, and one of the 100 greatest players of all time on the NFL's all-time team. He was the Man of the Year in 1991. He even has done a little acting. I know he was in The Right Stuff, a movie from 1983 that I really like. So he's a very talented guy, a great player, and very happy to have this autograph that was returned to me. Okay, and last but not least is Jim Kelly. Now, I've got to start this off by saying I have heard and read a little bit about something with Jim Kelly and an auto pen. I don't know the background. If anyone knows more than I do, please let me know in the comments because I'd be really curious. But my understanding is that at some point Jim Kelly had used an auto pen on cards or memorabilia, I'm not sure what. But here's what I can tell you. I sent this Pro Set card to Jim Kelly with a letter, and he returned it, and this is the signature I got. He gave me a few other things as well. For starters, he gave me this Bills team schedule from 1991, and this was really what was curious to me. Along with returning my card, he also sent me a couple of photos, game photos. You know, you can see Lawrence Taylor over here. Here's Jim Kelly. And, you know, these are legit, like this, it even shows right here, this paper manufactured by Kodak. So this is a legit photo, glossy photo of Jim Kelly in action. And then in addition to that, he sent me this photo as well. And this one he also signed, presumably. Now, I've looked at these 2 autos, and you can see they're definitely the same signature, but there are some differences. So the number 12 goes out much further here than it does here. You know, so it's the same signature, but there are some differences. So I don't know enough about auto pens to know if an auto pen has the exact same look on the autos, where if that's the case, then I would imagine these are legit autographs. But if the auto pen can make variations, then maybe not. But I will say this, I think these are super, super cool. It's a very unique thing that I was given glossy photos, one of which was autographed, along with returning my card. So anyway, if anyone has any extra knowledge on the auto pen controversy with Jim Kelly and what that might be, feel free to leave a comment. I will tell you guys, Jim Kelly is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks from growing up. I just loved their offense. They were amazing. Andre Reed, James Lofton, Thurman Thomas, who's just fantastic. Along with him, and on defense, some great players like Bruce Smith, Cornelius Bennett, Darryl Talley, among others. They were just a great team. I'm a Utah Jazz fan, and they were a team that was just dominant with multiple Hall of Famers that just, they'd get to the finals, but they just couldn't ever win the whole thing. And I've always kind of felt the same for the Buffalo Bills. You know, they were so good, so many talented players. They could almost do it, but not quite. Jim Kelly is part of that famous 83 draft. He was the 14th pick out of Miami by the Bills, but he had said that he really hated cold weather. There's a really good Football Life on Jim Kelly where he talks about this, but basically he did not want to play in a cold weather town. And so he ended up signing with the Houston Gamblers of the USFL, where he was great. He was a 2-time USFL All-League, which is like being an All-Pro. He was the Rookie of the Year in '84, the USFL MVP in '84. When the USFL folded, the Bills still had his rights. I do have his second-year USFL card. I don't have his rookie, unfortunately, but that's a super nice card right there, kind of showing him in his USFL glory days. But he went on to just be an excellent quarterback with the Buffalo Bills. They won constantly. They had 6 division championships. And for those of you who followed football in the 90s, you'll know they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. And unfortunately, with a wide right kick by Norwood, they lost all 4. That was the one that I really feel like that was the game. If they were going to win one, that was the one that was going to be their chance. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But I've got to tell you, when you think of how hard it is to win in the NFL, and to be able to make it all the way to the Super Bowl, not 1, 2, or even 3 times in a row, but 4 times in a row, that is an amazing accomplishment. And I think that's a big part of why there are so many Hall of Famers from that team. They were just a great team. Jim Kelly went to 5 Pro Bowls. His number 12 is retired. Hall of Fame in 2002. In more recent years, he's had some health issues where he's had to battle jaw cancer. But from what I understand, he's doing pretty well now, which is really good to hear. He's a collector of memorabilia. There's a Pro Set card. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Okay, so it's a Pro Line card. But I just took a quick look, couldn't find it, and I'm not going to go spend too much time. But there is a really cool Pro Line card of Jim Kelly in his, I don't know if it would be man cave or what, but he's basically laying out and showing off all of his framed jerseys for multiple sports of some of the best athletes out there. It's pretty cool. So you could definitely look into that card if you don't have it. It's probably worth about 10 cents, but it's a cool card. It kind of shows his love for the hobby as well, which is why it's curious that he would then use an auto pen, because if he really loves memorabilia and jerseys and all of that, you would think he'd be steering clear of the auto pen. My hope is that these are not auto pen. I am not sure. I don't even know how to tell. But I will say that I was definitely grateful that he was considerate enough to send back my card, along with a couple pictures, a schedule from the team. Very thoughtful for sure. Hopefully they're real, although I don't know. But anyway, that's all for today. Just want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy this, and I'll be back with more and likely shorter Blast from the Past TTMs in the future. Everybody take care, and thanks so much for watching.